Hello, everybody, and welcome to Telling Tales. Here we tell atmospheric stories together through the medium of tabletop role-playing games. It's Monday night, so we are playing Masks of Nyarlathotep. We are in the first section of the story. This is our 7th session of that, and we're all having a good and or terrifying time. Why not both? But before we get back into the story, let's talk about the channel, other things on the channel. This is Monday nights, Wednesday nights. I think starting up again this week is Simba Room on Wednesdays, and just started back last Thursday. No, this Thursday. Last Thursday? This Thursday. Starting back this Thursday, Yellow King. Cool. They've been on a break for a while, both back this week. Good. So yeah, Yellow King is every other week, and Simba Room is back to every week. So for updates on all of that stuff, follow our social media below the streams or join our Discord, which is probably the best place for all that stuff. There is a handy events tab, which I just used but didn't believe my own eyes. So doubted myself, but it is correct. So and there are lots of lovely people on there who watch things on the channel and chat with us about things like books and role-playing games and films and all that good stuff. Also below the stream is our YouTube if you're watching on Twitch, or our Twitch if you're watching on YouTube, and our Patreon where you can support us if you enjoy what we are doing on the channel. Without further ado, a quick recap on things. So for anybody who hasn't watched any of it, you shouldn't be here. No, you should be here, but maybe watch the other episodes. Anyway, the group answered a call for participants in a expedition in Peru. They got to Peru and met Augustus Larkin, who is the patron of the expedition, and his slightly unnerving assistant, as well as a man who introduced himself as Jesse Hughes, but later confirmed his actual name to be Jackson Elias. Some strange things have happened. At least one person has died. There has been a fist-sized maggoty, wormy thing taken out of a professor who is Jackson Elias's friend. And the Augustus Larkin's assistant may or may not be a 400-year-old vampire, fat-sucking vampire. The expedition has now begun in episode 6, and the group have headed up to Puno as a stop-off point in some trucks before then heading off on foot to the believed location of the pyramid. Upon arriving, a couple of the group, I think half the group actually, suffered with some altitude sickness. And upon arrival in Puno itself, to Jackson Elias suggested that they go and meet somebody that he knows there. They were planning on potentially going to meet her anyway. Sam's character may have a particular interest in this person, and she may also be able to provide some coca leaves to assist with the altitude sickness of those who are suffering. But upon arriving at her home, it was found in a state of disarray, and she was not there. So that was the end of the previous episode. So we are 2 players down this evening, but let's bring on Steve, who plays Edwin Price. Hey, Steve.
Hi, Jonny.
Quick recap on Edwin and his current frame of mind, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you.
Edwin is a lawyer. Again, not really. Well, he's come on this expedition, which was advertised some time ago in adverts in various papers in the UK. He came on it to broaden his worldview, and at this point is possibly wondering whether that was a wise thing to do. Yes, already seen a desiccated body and a stabbing, and a really gross maggot thing that yes, that wasn't pleasant at all. And now we finally, I did like how you said we'd started the expedition in episode 6. So a slight amount of shade cast there, maybe, I don't know. But yes, we're in Puno. Edwin does not have altitude sickness, which is good, but is probably somewhat nervous and upset by us turning up to a location again, which has been the potentially a site of some distress. I guess we'll see, but yes, coincidences seem to be racking up, and not in a good way.
Thanks, Steve. I will bring on Inga, who plays Corporal Martin Shane. Hey, Inga. A little bit of a recap on Martin and his current frame of mind, please.
Martin is a former kind of field medic, so he's kind of the doctor of the group essentially, and is really here for a job more than the kind of expanding horizons kind of side of things, but is kind of interested in sort of what some of the stuff that's happening with a still somewhat pragmatic view of things, but or rather not supernatural view of things, I suppose. Sadly is suffering from the altitude sickness, which isn't ideal when your doctor's one of the ones who's not feeling very well, but could be worse. I think Martin is a bit more kind of like, feels weird to kind of describe as go with the flow, because it feels a bit kind of hippie for who he is, but it's definitely a bit more of a like taking things as they come kind of approach. So I think he's feeling a bit less rattled by all of this weird shit, because Martin's seen stuff, like you have to just deal with what's in front of you at the time. So I think he's still very much in that headspace for the time being.
Cool, thank you. I'll bring on John, who plays Merritt Barton. Hey, John.
Hi, Johnny.
Little recap on Merritt, please.
Merritt is a linguist and a languages researcher who's here because he took a bit of a passing interest in one of the local indigenous languages, Quechua, and decided that a trip to Peru would be the fantastic way to practice this language. So far, he has, I think, not spoke a word of it, and is incredibly ill because he fumbled his constitution roll to get to not throw up out of the truck window. So he's not having the best time. It can only get better.
Absolutely. Yep. Great. And finally, I'll bring on Sam, who plays Mrs. Winifred Farwell.
I'm pretty sure. Hello. I'm pretty sure it can only get better is the motto of the whole campaign, right, Johnny? That's like the tagline.
Yep.
Yeah, so I play Mrs. Farwell. She's kind of a fairly wealthy middle-aged woman who's traveling here with her husband. And she's kind of thinks of herself as a bit of a mystic, interested in history and archaeology and things that might not be explained via, scientific means, which are so popular nowadays, and dismissing of otherworldly things, which I think everyone is doing left, right, and center. She enjoys the side of things that might be a bit more inexplicable, both from her fairly lucrative business back in London, but also I think drawing her on this, just clearly terribly ill-fated expedition, regardless of the myriad signs that we definitely shouldn't be here.
Cool, thank you. So yeah, unfortunately, Justin, who plays Mr. Farwell, can not be with us this evening, and Jack, who plays Ted Hobbs. They are a mechanic and sort of a photojournalist, respectively. So you've shown up to this house, sort of nestled in the mountain. and found it in a state of disarray. The door was slightly ajar. Things were kind of tossed around. Yeah, Jackson says, huh.
Someone call out, see if there's anyone here, maybe.
Last I was here, Nayra had concerns. She was very helpful to me in my research. Well, very helpful in the sense that she told me a lot about the folklore of the Karasiri. Obviously, at the time, I was making notes for reference in my book with the idea that later these things would be tied to actual real life occurrences. But yeah, I think she may be in hiding. She thought that she may have been being followed.
I think at that point I will start looking around away from the house and trying to see whether anybody is watching it and slash or us.
Okay, do you want to make a spot hidden roll, Steve?
Sure.
You were fine on the sickness, weren't you?
I was, yes.
Yeah.
I would like to look around inside the house and see if there's any evidence of what sort of disturbance it is. Like, was it someone looking for something? Was it someone trying to trash the place? Was there a fight? That's the sort of thing.
Okay. It's probably
The good old
going to be
again.
Spot hidden again, isn't it? Like, yeah. I wish there was some kind of like
tracking,
I don't know, like
maybe.
Yeah, or like appraise, but not to do with pricing something. Just like the understanding of a situation rather than.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I wish was in.
Crime scene reconstruction.
It's the good old,
Yeah.
the good old meta play of Call of Cthulhu is put lots of pointers, spot hidden, and listen, isn't it? It's like sorry, but they use more than anything else.
But yes, do that, please.
I was hoping to actually just call out and see if there is a person here who might need some attention, just in case she hasn't gone off in hiding and actually is here. So I'm kind of looking for a person and calling out for them and stuff to see if there's anyone who might need assistance.
Are you calling for Nayra by name?
Yeah, I'll call by name as well.
Okay.
And say like we're here with friends. Are you okay? And I'm a doctor and so on.
Okay. And John, was there anything Merritt wanted to do particularly?
I wasn't just throw up in the corner.
I think I will mostly be standing in the corner and trying not to throw up. But also, as Corporal Shane, if Corporal Shane shouts out, I will repeat what he says in Spanish.
Okay. Nice. Cool. So, Steve and Sam, how were your rolls?
My spot hidden is 50 and I rolled a 13, so
very nearly an extreme success.
Very nearly extreme.
And luck if you really wanted to.
I don't have a lot of luck.
No, fair enough.
Right. I'm just going to tell you that we are currently this far through the first book, and there are 2 books. And if you start throwing luck away at this point, you might have a bad time.
This is the difference between a one shot and this campaign.
What are the conditions for getting luck back?
Getting a new character.
Cool. Yeah, that'll happen. a few times.
Probably will. Yeah, we might as well chuck it.
Yeah, you want to lose your character without exhausting their luck. Go for
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
What a waste.
Oh god.
Sam, how was your roll?
I got a hard success as well.
Okay. So, Sam, you were trying to figure out what's happened. Okay, through process of elimination, you think that this is intimidation because strewn around, it's not exactly signs of a struggle, and it doesn't look like anything's been taken. So it looks more like somebody's come in and trashed the place so that if Nayra comes back, she knows they were here.
I see. Yeah. So she's probably already gone. They came in to shake her down, intimidate her. She wasn't here, so they went and break some things.
Or it's just letting out of anger. Those are kind of, but yeah, there's you don't think there was anybody else here at the point that this was done.
Okay. I will vocalize as much. I'll just say it looks like there was no one here when they came, and they just smashed the place up to scare her or something.
Steve, you see a couple of people back down the trail from where you've come, kind of attempting to stay reasonably discreet to the side of the trail, like behind a rock, behind a tree. But yeah, you see two distinct figures, which you didn't notice on the way up. You would, if somebody gave you, a $2 bet of they thought you walked past them, you'd probably take that bet that you didn't think you'd walk past them.
Well, I will be trying to sort of memorize their features, but I will hiss to the others.
They are a distance away, so you
Okay.
don't get. Yeah. You think you would guess that one is a woman and one is not a young boy, but maybe like a teenage boy.
Okay.
You would guess. But yeah, anything, you wouldn't be able to pick them out in a lineup if you saw them again with 5 other people.
Well, I'll just hiss to the others. I think we're being watched. There's a couple further down the road.
And Inga and John, you don't get a response to your calls.
If they're the ones who did this, we should find out why and who they're associated with. Mr. Elias, you know this place better than we do. Is there a back lane or a way out around there someone could sneak out to get a closer look without them seeing?
Not really. Not safely.
We
Mr.
also
Elias.
might want to take into consideration that if they've maybe paid locals to keep an eye, they may not be the same as the people who've actually done this damage. And frank, without wanting to sound a bit suspicious, almost anybody could be eyes for whoever did do this. Might not just be those two we have to watch out for.
Mr. Elias, does Nayra have either a child or an assistant?
No, she does not, Mr. Barton.
I suppose I was wondering whether it could be Nayra and someone watching to find out why we've trashed the place, as we are just 5 strangers who've walked in off the street.
I would wager that Nayra's previous fears may have not been unfounded, I would say.
Do you know anything else about her? Was she from Pune? Is there somewhere else she might have gone, or other places she was known to go?
I have a couple of people that mutual acquaintances I could ask in the town. I have a feeling that if we walk down this way, we will not be bothered.
Mr. Elias, this is the second person you've recommended we talk to related to this expedition who's been in danger. Is there anyone else on your list we should meet with sooner rather than later?
No, I think once Nayra's safety is assured, we will be the most endangered, Mrs. Farwell.
Yes, I'm inclined to agree.
Is it? I'm not sure if there's a way of doing this subtly. Is there any way of us leaving some sort of message for Nayra here that wouldn't be understood or translated or potentially even spotted by somebody else who didn't know her as well as you did?
No, I don't think so. The best bet would have perhaps been to leave a message in English, but Nayra does not speak English either, so perhaps not. I'm confident that we'll find her, Corporal Shane. My gut feeling. I think actually, did Mrs. Farwell say that she thought that
she left beforehand? Yeah.
My gut feeling goes with Mrs. Farwell's investigation that she was not here at the time.
Well, hopefully, she is safe and sound then.
I think, perhaps we should head down into the town before dark and maybe deal with this tomorrow.
If we wander down the street, seemingly oblivious, perhaps those people down there won't suspect anything. Get a closer look.
Shall we?
Before we go, Jonny, just a really quick glance around. I'm just trying to gauge whether it looks like Nayra left in a massive hurry, and there's like the important belongings like here, obviously things she wouldn't want to leave, or is it like all of the things you would consider precious items you would take with you are gone? I was assuming a little spot hidden, right? Something else.
No, you made a good roll. So, you don't. Yeah, you don't imagine that Nayra has many things. It's not like if somebody went to your house and the door was open and you weren't there and like your phone and keys were on the table. It's not that kind of. It's not as easy.
Yeah, it's not that easy. Yeah, that makes sense.
But there's not like there's no prepared food or there are no signs that it was literally like drop everything and go.
Yeah. Okay.
But equally, there's nothing to say that it wasn't that, because it could have been a time when nothing was happening. So
yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I won't say anything more there. I don't think there's a conclusion to be drawn there. That's all right. Follow the group.
On our way back through the town, we should make sure we pick up some medicine for those of us struggling with the altitude. That was, after all, what we did say we were off to do. So let's be sure to do that on our way.
Did you want to try and find some in Nayra's cabin?
If there might be some here, then why not?
Feel free to make either a spot hidden or a medicine roll, I would say.
I think medicine is my better one.
Because I'm fine that you could go through everything and be like, oh, that's a coca leaf,
Yeah. It's a 51. that I've rolled. Just checking where are my stats. Oh, why can't I? I'm like looking at my character sheet and trying to find. There it is, medicine. Yeah, so medicine 60, so that's a success on,
Cool.
on medicine. I ironically
okay.
cannot find where I've got find hidden on my character sheet, which is just
Oh, it's spot hidden.
spot
Spot
hidden.
hidden.
That's why I can't
Yeah.
find it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
Inga
yeah,
spot
you
hidden.
can
10.
It's not good.
you can dish those out to everybody who's suffering, which was it Merritt and Ted? I feel like there
Yes,
was-
and me.
Yeah. Okay, so if you make a Constitution roll, I succeeded for Ted, so Ted is no longer suffering.
I failed. 79
Okay.
over 45.
I failed by 1 point.
Ooh.
66 over 65.
Come on, that luck's got to be used.
It's just 1 point of luck. That's
1 point.
So right, so daily you can make a Constitution roll normally without the coca leaves. So I'm going to say that you can make a new one when you wake up in the morning, and then I'm going to say that you can make an additional one per day with the coca leaves if you need
Cool.
to.
I'm
So
going
you've
to
got a
leave that.
few, yeah. Okay, cool. So are you starting to head back down the path now? Jackson's sort of leading the way.
I think I'll ask Jackson whilst we're walking. Can I ask how well do the people in this place know you, and when did you start using Jesse Hughes as a name?
Mostly once I had realized I was going to become involved with Luis de Mendoza and Augustus Larkin, I suppose.
So it's possible that people here know you as Mr. Elias.
Yes. Although what I will say is that the people here are very unlikely to be very forthcoming to someone who looks like Mr. Larkin, or indeed you find people from.
But how about somebody who has more of the background of Mr. Mendoza?
More of the background of him, possibly. He himself, I have a feeling that he may be reasonably well known as somebody to avoid.
I think Mrs. Farwell just raises her eyebrow as you say Mendoza's background.
Okay, as you are walking, if you're keeping an eye on the figures, so they are kind of, peeking out from behind things.
I'll be trying to look casual, as casual
Yeah.
as a lawyer can. A nervous, slightly paranoid lawyer now, I think.
And then, all of a sudden that peeking out kind of ceases. And then you get to the point where they were kind of peeking out from and they're no longer there. You haven't seen a path that they've taken. Right. There's no sort of sign that they were there. You don't spot them again on your way back down to the town.
But there is like a plausible path they could have taken, right? It's not like we turn the corner and there's a dead end.
Yeah, there's ways that they could dip in and out of cover to kind of stay hidden from you. But yeah, you're still a little bit like you feel like you should have been able to spot them dipping in and out of stuff, probably. But yes, you make it back to the town unharmed. And are you, like Jackson is basically recommending heading straight for the hotel because it's on the way to getting dark now?
I think that's wise, given I think Mr. Barton here could do with a bit of bed rest. And I won't lie, I could do with a bit myself.
Okay.
I suppose we should wait until tomorrow to ask if anyone else knows about what might have happened to Nayra, but it feels so urgent. It pains me to settle for the night.
Has Mr. Larkin mentioned how long we're planning on staying in Puno?
I think the intention may be to head out tomorrow, depending on the weather. But I'm sure I can spring us a few hours to do what we need to do. Perhaps if the three of you are feeling better in the morning, we can pretend that you are not.
I certainly wouldn't say no to another day of rest.
We wouldn't want to be traveling higher before you've acclimatized
no.
to this. So,
Well, luckily you have a doctor around for doctor's orders, so I'm sure we can arrange something.
I look over at Corporal Shane, who's probably a bit like...
Yeah, I say that with authority that probably is not matched by my appearance at all at the moment.
It was such a cute scene in the last one where it's like, oh no, Mr. Barton's really ill. It's like Corporal Shane's like, okay, I'll help.
well, in that case, if there's nothing else you find people need from me, I will head to my room. And he heads up to the sort of check-in desk. And then heads upstairs.
If there's a moment we can have like just a little private moment, I guess, we maybe just quickly check in with people. Mrs. Farwell in particular, I think you were, I know that de Mendoza is not with us now on this expedition, but there were some worries about safety and things, and given that there was some sort of roughing up or disturbance at Nayra's, is this a concern of yours? Do we want to be a bit careful during our stay here in Puno, or are you feeling quite comfortable here in the hotel?
I think whatever danger awaits us doesn't wait for us here in Puno, but waits in the jungle we're heading towards. I think they were targeting people who might have dissuaded us from said journey or helped us on the journey. I don't know if this is supposed to reassure, but that's my feeling. However, I would like to make sure we don't leave this place until we found the information they don't want us to find. I just hope that poor lady is safe.
While you are standing in the lobby, would you all like to make psychology rolls?
Success. 3 points over. So,
000 is 100, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's a critical fail. I'm good at psychology too.
That's 60 over my 10, like absolute fail.
Okay. Merritt realizes that the locals are kind of looking at you kind of suspiciously. You wonder if Jackson was maybe onto something with the sort of, they may not be overly trusting of people who look like Larkin. I don't think that you're quite sure at the moment of the specific reason for that. But yeah, you think that he might have been onto something. and you wonder if if there was any sort of I don't know, any sort of fuss kicked up that you were involved in that you may end up in some trouble, kind of thing.
Right. Okay. I will try and sort of hasten us along. Why don't we all get checked in and let's go to someone's room if we wish to continue to talk.
I
Be
will
good to get settled in
I
some
will happily
privacy.
follow your instructions, but I think Miss Farr will be like, the locals here seem very friendly and welcoming, don't they?
Hmm. Hmm.
The desk clerk is obviously, customer service, like nothing's too much, but yeah, from the kind of the other people milling around, yeah.
I mean, I would suggest that if it sounds like that's an invitation, let's get you settled in your room, Mr. Barton, so that we can then leave you to a hopefully restful night.
That would be appreciated.
And yeah, I guess head up to Barton's room first, I guess. Maybe drop off bags or something, but yeah.
I think we left all of our bags with Larkin.
Yeah, they've already been taken to the rooms. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. Well, then straight up with Barton then.
I think once we all get to my room, I'll sort of gesture people in and say, I think Mr. Elias was right. I don't think we are. I don't think we make a very good impression on the locals. And I think we should perhaps bear that in mind.
I mean, it's maybe not too surprising. Professor back in Lima wasn't all that keen on the idea of things like these expeditions taking potential treasures out of where they ought to be. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a similar kind of local feeling, and especially if we get to more superstitious areas and we're traipsing into places that are maybe meant to be more protected, or I don't know. It's I think we can probably expect a bit more of this sort of thing as we continue on our expedition. It's right to highlight that as something for us to be cautious about.
So we need to keep our noses clean, then, is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. I think the police in Lima were remarkably friendly considering the circumstances we found ourselves in, and they may not be quite as open to our help in Puno. Perhaps we should avoid being in the vicinity of any stabbings.
Good advice at any time, in any place.
I will look at my husband.
Okay, right. Note that one down for later.
We've seen it already in this campaign.
Amazing.
True. Well, I'll be having a look around the room and sort of gauging the security or otherwise of windows, and how flimsy is the door? Is there a lock on it? That sort of thing.
There are locks on the doors, yes. You don't envision a way up to the windows from the floor without a ladder. But they are just like pull up and down windows, which could feasibly be opened from outside. But yeah, the security here is from you being a floor up. So yeah, that's the kind of state. So yeah, you could definitely lock the door.
Have we seen Larkins as we arrive at the hotel later in the day?
No, you might assume that he is in his room.
Okay.
In
Relaxing.
some state or
Doing
other.
whatever
Yes.
he does.
Doing Larkin things.
Yeah.
Just larking
Manifesting
around.
new.
Mhm.
Perfect. Manifesting new tattoos and going through his opiate collection. Are we, like, our rooms, are they all close together? Or are they spread about disparate parts of the hotel? If we needed, say, in an emergency to
Yeah, can
run
we
to...
hear someone scream in one of the rooms?
They're kind of split into two sections, so you are together. So Mr. and Mrs. Farwell's room is near Edwin's room, and then Corporal Shane, Ted, and Merritt's room are near each other.
And where's Eliza's?
He went up before you, so you're not sure actually,
Yeah,
and you're not sure where Larkins is either.
Right.
We don't have a whole lot more to do until we can.
I was going to say, I was thinking of settling
Contact
myself
our-
now. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's probably a ton of. I mean, I might just have a, like, you know, probably daily routine, but extra special care to, like, count up the opiates and stuff. Those sort of, like, you know, take stock quite literally of, like, what's in my bag, make sure I've got everything I'm looking for, and yeah, just keep an eye on those levels in particular, maybe.
I suppose I might go down for a supper and a few drinks with my husband, but no expectation of doing anything. So
I think I will be very glad to have a shower and then probably curl up in bed with a book not long after.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, the night goes off without anything concerning. Inga and John, if you want to roll your morning roll for Constitution for your altitude sickness. Oh,
I'm switching my dice. That's a 95. That's no good for me. I'm still not feeling this altitude, and I'm not feeling these dice. So change.
okay, but Merritt has had a huge swing in how he feels.
Yep, I had a hard
overnight.
success. So
Right.
that early night really did something good.
Cool. Inga, it's up to you whether you want to roll now for the coca leaves as well, or whether you want to leave it till later. But
yeah, I'll go for it now. See if we can start the day, right?
yeah, I was going to say, I think it's reasonable. Nice. I think it's reasonable that you would wake up and go, "Oh, I still feel crap. I'll, yeah." Cool. Okay, so everybody is feeling better. Are you all heading down for? You could have prearranged this, but are you all heading down for breakfast in the hotel at a certain time? Do you think?
yeah, if I should slightly retcon, I would have probably tried to prearrange with folks that we go early, so we try to maybe get out before Larkin a wee bit, rather than get caught up in that and just be like, "Oh, we'll be back soon if we see him." But yeah, like 7 or 8 out and about if possible.
Cool.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sounds good.
Yeah, so Jackson comes down to meet you as well, and is happy to head out early. And you, who has the what are your what are your luck scores? Who has the best luck?
Well, it won't be
60.
me.
50.
My luck is 40.
My luck is 60.
No, we draw.
Okay. Yeah. Jackson, Justin's are worse than that. So whichever one of you wants, make a luck roll.
Oh.
How you feeling, Sam?
Go on. I'll make it.
You're a very lucky person. So
I'm
I think
usually
you
a
should
lucky
roll.
person. Yeah, I should roll like 100 now. 90. Told you we shouldn't have used me.
Okay, you are about to head out the door, and Larkin comes down while you are sort of in the lobby and says, good morning, friends. I was just heading down for breakfast. It seems that you will be catching the worm today. Are you... do you think you will be... I don't want to pressure anybody, but do you think you will be good for the on-foot portion of the expedition from today, or...?
Well, I was actually just saying to Mr. Barton here that I think, given his condition with the altitude, a little more time. We're going to go for a little gentle stroll. I think it's good to get things moving again. But if we're planning to move a bit further up, I wouldn't prescribe that in a rush, shall we say?
Of course, yes. Well, perhaps shall we meet late this afternoon and discuss whether tomorrow might be appropriate, Corporal Shane?
Yes, and I'd quite like as well, while we're on our wanders, to maybe stock up on some more coca leaf and things that might help with the ongoing journey for the altitude and things. So yes, I think this afternoon would be splendid.
Yes, that makes sense.
While we're out and about in town, is there anything we can pick up for you as well, Mr. Larkin?
No, thank you. Well, if we have the day, then I shall organize some things myself. Would anybody like to make a psychology roll?
Yes.
Failed again. 58 over 40.
I succeed. Regular.
Nope. I fumbled.
Okay. Any successes? You don't think that Larkin 100% believes that Merritt needs to... that you can't go today. That there's like a medical reason that you can't go today.
I mean, given what we already know, that doesn't surprise me at all, because the massive misdirective conversation the other day, he suspects something.
But yeah, like you kind of see him, like when Shane says that, you see his eyes sort of glance to Barton. And obviously Barton is looking markedly better today. And yeah, you just get the impression that he's sort of like, but he's all about, sort of maintaining this air of sort of like friendliness, and so yeah, he doesn't speak negatively about it, but you certainly don't believe that he's
I obviously won't say anything, and we'll just head out as planned. But once we're a little bit of a distance away, I'll just say, I don't think Mr. Larkin entirely believed you, Corporal Shane, but I suppose that's not especially surprising, given he already, he is keeping things from us, and maybe aware we're somewhat onto that.
Yeah, so maybe it would have been better if the two of us had stayed behind to maybe helped with the story a little more, but I suppose it's done now, isn't it?
Well, I don't think this pretense will last forever. I think both him and us have realized something is going on, so we're just going to have to see.
Well, let's get on so that we can be done by the afternoon then, shall we?
Does anyone else have another idea? I thought it might be best to start with asking around if anyone knows her name. Nayra, if there's any family or friends, but you mentioned that people might not be very familiar with us or happy with us asking questions. So
Jackson says, don't be concerned, Mrs. Farwell. I have a few contacts to ask, and I'm pretty certain that one of those will have some idea where she's holed up. It's entirely up to you whether you want to accompany me or look around the town if you have any supplies that you wanted to pick up. Entirely up to you fine people how you want to spend this time.
I'm very keen to help with finding Nayra if possible. I'll come with you.
My slight concern is that, well, if Nayra doesn't want to be found, or at least if there are people who also want to find Nayra, then perhaps we might not be doing her a service by being so obvious.
Well, we might divide and conquer a little. You could perhaps, Mr. Hughes, give us some contacts who are really nothing to do with this, but if there is somebody watching or following, they may follow the wrong group of us. Something like that, perhaps. Bit of a diversion.
Yes.
Maybe you could try and find out what's going on with them. Catch up with one, perhaps, might be interesting.
Not a bad idea.
I would imagine that with Mr. Barton speaking the local lingo, it would be fair to say that the locals might be a little more receptive to him, and you might be on the sort of the true path, as it were, whereas some of us other bumbling foreigners can go down the wrong paths.
I would say Mr. Barton should stay with you because you might need to talk to whoever you find in another language, and Mr. Elias is the only other Spanish speaker with us.
Yeah.
It is a good point.
I mean, it matters less if we don't really need to seriously go down a line of inquiry somewhere, but I suppose it helps with the cover story about the illness. So, yeah, I don't mind too much either way.
What about Mr. Price and Mr. Hughes with me, and the rest of you with Mr. Barton?
Yes, very well. I hope probably a slightly more conspicuous crowd.
Okay, let's. What if we meet at the? We should meet away from the hotel. He like scribbles an address down and gives it to you and says, "An hour." Cool.
Certainly.
So if you all want to make spot hidden rolls, you basically make your way around places. Jackson takes the group with him to two different homes and one person that he happens to bump into, who he was intending to speak to anyway, in the street. And you do get information on Nayra's likely whereabouts from this person. Whether you made or didn't make spot hidden rolls, well, who made spot? Did anybody make the rolls? Yeah,
hard success.
Okay. Yeah, you don't think anybody is following you at present. So you reconvene, and Jackson says, well, he kind of looks around to make sure that there's nobody, within very close earshot, and says, a mutual acquaintance believes that Nayra is staying with a friend on one of the floating islands on the lake. So it's a little bit of a walk up there, a couple of miles, but you're welcome to come, of course. We'll have to rent a boat, I think, to get out there.
Do you think we'll be able to make it back in time for Mr. Larkin this afternoon if we do?
He kind of does some, it looks like he's doing some maths. You're on about 9 a.m. at the moment. So, 2 miles each way, even if it's uphill. Probably 2 hours total plus the trip out. Like, you can probably be back at 1 or 2 p.m., which wouldn't be unreasonable, you don't think? For certainly, because like the intention isn't for you to go today, it's to check in to see whether you can go tomorrow. So like, if it's a bit later, you could just say, oh, I was just, assessing. We took him up a hill to see if he was okay up there. So I think, yeah, it's probably fine.
Yeah, altitude sickness wasn't enough. We thought we'd add a bit of seasickness to the situation by getting him on a boat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we should move sooner rather than later then, by the sounds of it.
Very keen to come.
Well, I shall... maybe I shall get us a little in the way of food supplies. And he kind of points to a little like deli thing, and goes in and gets some bread and meat for the trip.
What's the terrain around, like outside of the town like here, Jonny? Are we talking full-on jungle, or is it quite open landscape?
You're nestled into the base of a mountain here. So yeah, you've got like just before the town, you had all that kind of like farmland, but it's still quite rugged. And then like the lake is up further from you. I believe it's one of the highest or the highest lake like on the planet. So that's what you're going up towards. But yeah, you're very much sort of in the Andes section here.
Mr. Well, am I right in thinking that you warned us that there was potential death cult activity around? Was it these lakes that we're at now here in Puno?
That's correct, Corporal Shane. Yes.
And by that, did you mean like around the lake, like the town here, Puno? I'm hopefully it's like reasonably like quiet here where we are. We've got a bit of privacy, or is it more the lakes themselves? And forgive me for putting this on your friend, but is there any possibility that this is something Nayra is involved with?
Oh no. She's very concerned about this activity, as it were.
So it's not the lake.
Yeah.
She's got friends out on the lakes. That's not potentially where the danger is. It's that this activity is potentially here in the town where we've already stayed.
Unless it has followed her there, of course. But yeah. All the more reason to get to her, I think.
Yes.
Also all the more reason to be wary that we aren't leading others to her, as we've already discussed.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're having this conversation while you're kind of strolling along. So yeah, you sort of summit an area, and you kind of come over this crest, and you can see the lake. It is enormous. You are not convinced that you can see the end of it in either direction. And Jackson actually starts sort of reeling off facts about it in a sort of it seems a little out of place, almost the kind of tour guide thing that he's putting on with all these facts about the lake. But
this is Lake
he's
Titicaca, right?
That's correct, yeah. He says, it's about 100 miles in that direction and about 50 miles in that direction. Fast.
Yeah, he'll get some reactions. I think that's fair.
And over that side of the lake, is Bolivia. Yeah, it's in both countries. You can see that there's like loads of reeds in the lake, and as you kind of get closer, you can see there's a few floating islands on the lake as well that are sort of within reach of this shore. You imagine there's probably more like around and around and around and around, but like from this shore you can see where some are. And they each have like a different colored wrap on some of the bottom sort of floats to denote which is which at a distance kind of thing. So because there are fishermen who use these floating islands as a base, so then from a distance they can kind of hone in on the correct one instead of kind of going. And Jackson says that one's the one that we want to head to. Points at one with these kind of red and yellow wraps around the bottom.
Are these like normal places to live with like houses and stuff on them, or is this like a really like rough place to be hiding out sort of thing? Out of curiosity, Jonny.
Like I said, they're basically bases for fishing families.
Whole family's got it.
Yeah. So yeah, they're like, there are buildings on them, like wooden homes.
Okay.
And you can see that there's somebody with like a few reed boats on the shore ahead of you. And Jackson starts to sort of stride ahead as you're heading towards this guy. And John Merritt would hear him sort of greet this man and ask, be figuring out how many people will fit in a boat and therefore how many boats he needs to hire and how much that will cost. And he takes a few coins out and passes them to this man. And actually, by the time you've reached the shore, this deal is kind of done. You can get 4 of you in a boat. So 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so that you'll have a 3 and a 4. Well, I can I can drive one of these things. Any of you find people any good with a boat? I realized I perhaps should have checked this before we.
This wasn't part of the requirements on the character sheet.
Did the expedition advert mention rowing?
I feel like
is it rowing, or is it
Justin's character might have something in this, but I don't know.
Yeah, how would these
if
boats?
he didn't, he'd probably say he could.
Well,
he does have pilot boat.
Oh,
there you go. He can. I mean, any amount of it's got to be remarkable in something like this.
Yeah, maybe I'll roll for Mr. Farwell. I imagine that Winifred is sort of like, darling, that holiday that we had in Dorset, you were.
And then she gets in the other boat.
Wow.
yeah, she remembers the holiday in Dorset. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I rolled an 89 over 11, so
Yes,
not a fumble.
it's not a fumble.
Might just take a while.
What I will say is that you get into the boats, and he kind of very unsteadily is kind of rowing, and whoever is in that boat, I'm not going to bother deciding who's split where, but you've basically turned like 90 degrees because he's just rowing one side to begin with. And then you hear the man on the shore shout something in sort of a half mocking, half maybe he's concerned about the safe return of his boat. Merit, do you want to make a listen roll for Merit, John?
Yeah. My listen
It's
is
just swear words. Just.
55. Where it's like, oh, I haven't heard those ones. Yeah, that
Yeah, it's a
is
good opportunity.
oh, yeah, it's a hard success.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to say that you don't need to make a Spanish roll to know that, yes, there are a few expletives in there. But it's basically light-hearted mockery, essentially. And in fact, so when the guy shouts, do you think any of you would turn to look? Can you hear him
Yes.
shout from the shore? Okay, anyone who does, make a spot hidden roll, please.
Finally, a success. 12.
5
Fail
90s in a
72.
row or 4. Oh.
Sam, get
Oh,
new
12
dice.
that's a
Mm.
figure out your so 12 under my 45, so that's less than half.
That's a
hard
hard
success.
success, yeah.
What
Regular
did...
success for me?
Yeah, and Steve, what did you get, sorry?
I failed 72
Okay.
over 50.
John, Merit sees a couple of people standing by the shore, further along than where you have kind of come from. So you don't think that they came in after you, if that makes sense. And does that make sense? Like further round. So if you've come in from a point to the shore, they are at a point further along the shore than where you have come from.
Right.
So they've not come in from behind you. They're past where you are. Inga, Corporal Shane, reasonably certain that they may be the woman and teenage boy from last night. But yes, similarly, because of where they are, you don't believe they followed you. You think that they were here already.
I'll relay that to the others on the boat because it's just us on the boat. There's no other. The boat.
Yeah, the
guy
other
who
guy isn't with you.
left us to it, hasn't he? Yeah, I'll let the guys know then.
And you are heading towards the floating island. So you reach there. The group with Jackson rowing a little before the other group. And you are greeted, for want of a better word, by a couple of the sort of islanders, like the native islanders, people who live here, you assume, who are speaking in fact, John, can you make a Spanish roll for me, please? They're speaking in quite frantic okay. They're basically saying, who the hell are you? What are you doing here? Why are you here? And Jackson's kind of trying to talk to one of the, like, there's basically a couple of groups of two. So Jackson is kind of trying to deal with a couple of them, and the other couple are kind of at you and others. So I'm happy if you want to try and interact with them.
Similarly, try and calm the situation.
Are you saying anything about why you are here?
Is Jackson?
I'm going to ask you to make me another listen roll because there's a lot going on here, and I think
that's fair. That is a fail.
Okay. You haven't heard Nayra's name in what he's saying, but you may have missed it.
Okay. I won't say Nayra's name, but I will be like gesturing towards Elias and say, we're helping him. He's looking for his friend. His friend is supposed to be here. We're not trying to hurt anyone. We're just making sure everyone's safe. I'm very trustworthy, etc., etc.
I wouldn't say I was if I wasn't. Okay. Why don't you make me a charm roll? And I'm going to do the same for
Could I
Jackson.
persuade you for a persuade roll instead?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm happy with that.
Well played.
Oh. So
Don't
that's
fumble,
a
John.
fumble.
No, don't do that, John. That's a bad time to fumble, John.
I could spend 1 luck and make it not a fumble.
Yeah, do that. This seems
Or-
kind of important.
Oh shit.
And make the consequences worse potentially.
Yeah.
But
This is
who's
such a
going to
bad
fail
time
2
to
dice
You mean
rolls
the
on the trot?
make the narrative more interesting, Steve?
Oh,
I
God.
think that's what you meant to say.
But it's all very well saying who's going to fail twice in a row, but really who's going to, if it's not a fumble, it's better, right? Like potentially even with the consequences of a push.
But
fail.
this new roll is just as likely to fumble as that one was, and a fumble on this roll would probably just like mean we have no chance
Yes.
of talking to this woman.
But if that happens, the dice have truly willed it. Like, what else can you do?
Yeah, we're traveling with Mr. Mendoza. No, Larkin.
No,
Oh,
No,
wait.
the other one. I will spend a luck. I will spend that valuable resource to just not completely.
So it's a fail, but
offend.
not a fumble.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you catch yourself just before the words "trust me, I'm trustworthy" came out of your mouth?
Yeah.
Because that feels like the least trustworthy thing you can say.
Okay, so you see the sort of one of the people who's talking to you, the sort of vein in his head is starting to like bulge, and then all of a sudden you hear the conversation between Jackson and the two people that he's talking to has dropped in tone to be, you know, much calmer. Yep. And you see that the guy who's sort of yelling at you gets like an elbow in the ribs from the person next to him. And they quite quickly he kind of whispers in the person's ear, I'm happy for you to try and make a hard listen roll if you want to hear what he says. But essentially it diffuses the situation. At least for now. They're still looking a little suspicious, but for now, it's, you know.
I do not succeed the hard.
Okay. Yeah, the tone has dropped slightly, but you're not sure it's permanent, is what I would say about this.
Okay.
And one of the people turns and goes inside. And now they're kind of silent. And just standing sort of like a guard in front of, not directly in front of the door, but like between your group and the door is this group of people. I would also say, sorry, go on, Sam.
I was going to say, does this just seem like a family? Are these people like, I mean, guards is too extreme word to use, but do they seem like people who are more like equipped to be stopping people coming here? Are they, you know, random fishermen we've run into? What's
you would guess that this is two man and wife couples.
Okay.
Of fishing families.
Fishing. So they're just normal folks who may be friends of Nayra or something like that. Got it.
That would be your assumption, yeah.
Are they obviously armed?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't seem to have anything on them. But yeah. So yeah, a man went inside, so there's two women and a man here now, basically sort of stood with you, looking suspicious and slightly raised hackles. And then the other man comes back outside, and in Spanish, says "you" inside to Jackson. And he kind of looks at you all and nods and says, "Hopefully I'll just be a moment."
Shout
And
if you
goes
need
inside.
us.
Yep.
I might have like literally just like plop myself down on the ground in a very non-threatening sort of, kind of way, like, clearly not ready for action sort of. Yeah.
I'm gonna look at this floating island in fascination because this seems pretty cool. Just spend a bit of time nonchalantly looking at it without trying to be offensive.
Cool. Yeah, a couple of minutes go by, and sort of if nobody's like attempting to move off anywhere else or interact with anybody in that time, then Jackson comes back out and says, "Please." Kind of gestures you all to the door.
Take a glance at the other folks who were defending the house before going.
Yeah, they've still got kind of like, very slightly sort of squinted, suspicious eyes. But then they kind of like nod backwards over their shoulder to show that you can go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wondering.
Yeah.
Okay, so you enter this home, and you may be slightly disconcerted by the way that the floating island kind of gives a little with each step that you take. But, these people are living here, so presumably it's safe. And you see a woman sitting in a chair and drinking something, some steaming hot drink. And she smiles at you all as you come in, and kind of gestures to an area where there is sort of cushions and blankets on the floor. And you see that Jackson takes a seat at one end of that kind of section.
Sit down and yes.
I'll take off my shoes before sitting. Seems polite.
Yeah. John Merritt hears Jackson's say, "Nayra, these are my friends. Thank you for welcoming us." And she says back, "Please tell them they are welcome." And Jackson says, "She says that you are welcome here."
I will say in Spanish that we are glad to see you in good health.
She smiles at you, speaking Spanish, and then kind of holds a finger up, and has this pouch, and she pulls out a handful of what looks like sort of small pieces of jerky, and hands them out to each of you.
Gracias. I'll take one.
Mm-hmm.
At the point that you start chewing, she bursts into laughter, and anyone who has bitten into this thing finds it is actually just a piece of wood.
Amazing.
And unless you take yourself very seriously, you will be pretty instantly set at ease by. She's obviously a very playful, character. I
think we had that
she
covered, really.
She even does a couple of the like little claps while she's laughing. You know, she's just taking great joy from having played this little prank on you.
I can't resist, and we'll play up to it, and we'll just pretend that I haven't realized, and continue to try and chew on it and look at it confused for at least like five or 10 seconds in a way that it's like obvious.
Yeah, you see her kind of glance at you and grin a little bit. But then she kind of turns to Jackson, and her face turns a little more serious. And again, John Merritt would overhear that she says, they came for me. I told you they would come for me. And I know that you didn't think that they are real, but... And you hear Jackson say back, well, my opinion on that may have changed slightly since we last spoke. Do you have a story about the pyramid, maybe, that we are to go to? And she says, soon. We, do your friends want to talk about anything else? And he says, does anybody have any questions or anything for Nayra?
Do you know, I will say this directly in Spanish and then say it again in English for everyone else's benefit. Do you know exactly who broke into your home?
Do I know who?
Yes.
I think it is likely the woman and the boy who I have seen. But it could be others. There are others.
If that's being translated, then I would say to Mr. Barton, make sure to mention that they were there when we were on the lake.
Yes, we've seen them as well, both at your house and on the lake.
That does not surprise me.
Are you safe to stay here?
I don't know.
What, Mr. Barton, if you ask who they are and why they're after her, I'm not sure we're clear on that.
I believe that they are recent additions to the Karasiri forces here in Puno. The original ones that I think were following me looked much more... She kind of looks around and says, like you. But the more recent ones, they are people that I had previously seen here. And I think that they may have been, yes, whatever they do, I think may have happened to these people.
Sorry, she's saying that, maybe this is translation, that these Karasiri were foreigners that seem to be converting the locals. Is that how I should be understanding this?
Conquistadors. They were foreign to
Yes.
these lands.
She says yes. And then Jackson says, that's what I was hinting at yesterday.
But why are they after, or what are they after from Nayra here?
Jackson says, well, that may be partly my fault. Well, it is my guess that they found out that she was talking to me about them. I imagine they were quite happy here, undisturbed by outside the thought of anybody learning more about them or interrupting their activities, I imagine they didn't like.
And yet, it begs the question why we were asked here in the first place, given Mendoza was part of the plan to bring us here, presumably in some way. Surely having outsiders like us come to this place would risk that further. Strange, anyway.
Also, is this sort of common knowledge in the area, and the difference in Nayra is that she was talking about it with somebody else, some outsider, or is the knowledge she holds unique in some way? Is it the fact that she knows something, the thing that's special, or the fact that she's telling people?
She sort of laughs a slightly ironic laugh and says, everyone knows. Or at least most people, to varying degrees of how much they believe, but everyone knows the stories.
We heard stories of death cults around here, I'm guessing. People don't feel safe. Anyway. Mr. Barton, you should tell her about Professor Sanchez and what happened to him. She might be interested.
Yes, I will. I won't hide anything or keep anything out. I will recount meeting Professor Sanchez and poor Trinidad. It was Rizzo Trinidad. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, she listens intently and shoots Corporal Shane a sort of impressed look upon hearing about the surgery, and says to Jackson, I am glad that your friend was okay in the end. And he says, as was I.
Is that as far as you know, Nayra, how they create more of the Karasiri? Does that make sense?
She says to, through the, and she says, yes, that would make sense.
Is that normally done unwillingly, like seems to be the case with Professor Sanchez, or this woman and this boy? Are they, were they potentially willing participants in whatever's happened here?
I suppose, as with any of these things, there may be those who see the potential power of these things and create some worship of them in some way and wish to be like them. But more typically, the stories are about people going missing and such things. Speaking of stories, would you like one? She lights a couple of candles, but they're in like glass, because obviously you're on a wooden thing, so they're in like glass canister things, and draws down a couple of blinds over the windows, So yeah, via Jackson, and obviously Merritt here's the original. So you hear her speaking in Spanish, and then Jackson basically says, "Okay, Nayra knows the story of how an ancient and evil god fell from the sky and landed in Lake Titicaca. It crawled out and brought hunger with it, devouring all it touched. The trickster hero, Akeko, told the evil god where the most nutritious food could be found underground, showing it grubs and tubers. Akeko convinced the god from the sky, tempted by the food, to crawl into an old armadillo burrow, and then placed stones over the burrow, trapping the god below. Akeko told the people that this was now a sacred site and had them build a temple over it, binding it in place with spells worked in gold. The god from the sky still lives underneath the temple to this day, and those who know of it are wise enough to avoid its tomb. And as such, few, if any, people from Puno go anywhere near the pyramid. And it has largely become a forgotten site.
But the conquistadors went there. Can I nudge Mr. Farwell now to get that gold thing out from the tools that he presumably tries to carry everywhere? Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have it with him now, to be fair.
Would you leave a valuable gold bar?
No, he would carry it with him everywhere. Yeah, he's got it with
him. I was more
him.
thinking, would you take a really heavy tool bag on a boat? And I was like, yes. Yes, he would.
He would, yeah. So I will nudge him to get it out and put it on the table, or put it in front of us now.
Imagine if he'd lost it overboard.
So is he showing that, did you say? She looks at it. You don't see any sort of sign of recognition in her face.
I guess I will say to Mr. Barner, tell her this is from the temple, the pyramid, we think anyway.
Oh.
It was originally gold.
Oh. Yeah, she kind of looks at it a little bit more now. It's very nice. And hands it back.
Do the images mean anything to her? Does the symbols?
No, she didn't show any sign of sort of noticing anything. Again, they're literally just geometric shapes, as far as you can see. So
when we discovered this, we believe it had recently been handled by perhaps de Mendoza himself. We found burnt skin on it. Do you have any idea why the gold of the temple might be a weakness for the Karasiri?
if this is part of the spells worked in gold, then perhaps that is why.
Do you know of any other weakness they have?
I'm afraid not.
Is there any way to know a Karasiri if one comes across such a person?
Unless they have recently been turned and have the signs of such wounds from, as you were describing, the things that have happened, then I'm not sure that there is. Although I always feel that there is some humanity lacking from them, but that is perhaps more difficult to describe as a marker than you would like.
This might sound strange, but somebody that we know had seemingly mysteriously discovered a tattoo on their chest. I sort of wondered if there's any kind of markings or symbology that might, if it's possible that something like that could relate to these cults or these peoples.
It's possible, and it's something that you could look out for, but I am not aware of anything.
And did you know the name, this Luis de Mendoza?
Oh, yes. I think he may be the main part of the reason that I may be being followed in terms of what I have shared with Jackson. I think he especially is one to be wary of.
Again, this is all via sort of either Jackson or Barton. Can you think of a reason why a Karasiri would want to return to the temple? We've been wondering about this, the reason for this expedition, and his involvement. But we can't fathom it.
I am not sure. Perhaps there is some wellspring of their power there, or something along those lines. But as I have said, nobody has been there in a very long time. And aside from their activity in the city, I do not know much of their daily comings and goings, I suppose.
I mean, thinking in mythological terms, at least, where there's I don't want to jump to assumptions here, but it sounds like this god that devours and hungers for things is the god of, or the source of, the Karasiri. And if there's a cage around their god, I mean, there's how many mythological tales of wanting to release the caged being. It's something like that, especially if they're the only ones who seem to be going in that direction.
I was just coming to the same conclusion. What if the bars were simply cracked rather than being fully broken by the removal of that piece there?
And less about the search for gold and more about, or who knows, maybe that was the greed and hunger are not a million miles away. Maybe there's a greed for gold that led to small unleashing of this power. Again, in the terms of the mythology, at least, that bore you gave birth to the Karasiri.
Perhaps.
Well, there's that the Figueroa letter, which mentions the Figueroa hearing voices calling him back and promising great power.
That doesn't seem just like the Karasiri, does it? Also, we know that Mendoza was trying to get a hold of that piece of the gold, and obviously wants to go back to the pyramid. Perhaps somehow this gesture to the, presumably the piece still out somewhere, this is needed by them to release the whole seal, or this is all part of a plot to do that. In that case, we should be very careful about our involvement.
Well, he left it behind, though. If he was there at the university, he left it behind, and he
might have had no choice.
I mean, we didn't see him there. It would have seemed like there was, or rather, you didn't see him there. I don't know. Maybe there's information about it that's valuable, but I certainly wouldn't be thinking it. I don't think it sounds like he's wanting to restore that. From what we've heard, it seems like potentially, as you say, kind of breaking that seal or opening the cage.
He definitely wanted to get to it for whatever reason, and he also clearly had a plan to return there. That's all I was thinking.
He may have been trying to hide it. If to use, I suppose we've been using it as a metaphor. If this is one of the bars of the cage keeping whatever is under the temple in place, then perhaps he was intending to make sure that no one ever seals the gap.
We still have to figure out why we've been asked to come here. I think it's safe to assume that Mendoza wants it in some way, so we have to bear that in mind.
Well, if he couldn't touch this, then perhaps he can't touch the rest of the pyramid either. Maybe he needed to bring someone else in to do the dirty work.
And we don't know other stories and are likely to wander to the pyramid, yes, without fear or wisdom.
Of course, Europeans have already trounced around the country, getting themselves into ancient pyramids and breaking things. Why not another load 400 years later?
All of the locals are suspicious.
More recently than the last 400 years as well. I mean, for this sort of thing, I suppose these expeditions are quite popular. I can't imagine it would have taken somebody like Larkin too much convincing that there are treasures to be discovered. I mean, this is sort of, as I say, quite popular in a of a particular type of group of people, I suppose.
And Mendoza went to great lengths to try to make sure that the secrets of the Karasiri were not revealed to us before we got here, it seems, as well, although he failed, hopefully.
Jackson's sort of nodding and says, I like this as an idea. It feels nothing up until now has quite seemed to fit as the whole picture. This may fit. Luis de Mendoza cannot potentially, if we're making assumptions here, right? But if he cannot touch this gold bar, and this is a part of the whole thing, and either he wanted to make sure that is never put back in place, and or wanted more people to loot more of this to allow whatever else to happen, then that to me fits.
Well, we know what we must not do then. I suppose that's simple enough.
But it's not so simple. I think it puts us in quite a difficult position. If we're here on an expedition to essentially plunder a pyramid and we're saying we want to restore it and not remove anything, we are, if nothing else, joining this expedition of Mr. Larkins on very false pretenses.
I think that's a given already, Corporal Shay.
Well, I was hired to do a job, and so far I've largely tried to do my duty here.
You weren't hired to fight these vampire creatures, were you? And yet here we are.
Well, it's not like I've gone toe to toe with any vampires so far, but you know, I mean, we knew there was a sort of unusual journey into some sort of unknown wilderness or what have you. But I mean, I think we're going to find ourselves come a cropper once, assuming our assumptions here are correct. If we turn up at this temple and then say to Larkin, actually, sorry, no, we've made it here, but we're putting something back and now we're going to leave. Thank you very much.
Perhaps there's something else we can have, but I think what we have to be very clear on, given all the stories that we've heard and everything else, we have to be in agreement now before we leave that we must do everything we can to prevent anything else being taken from whatever is sealing that thing in there.
I mean, I have to say, like, so far, as I say, this is mythology. This in my mind, it's very interesting and symbolically fascinating, and I like to think that there's a reason why we end up in these places and discovering the things that we do. I'm just not sure yet whether that's literal meaning or figurative meaning and things that we can kind of learn and glean from experiences such as these.
I'm looking thoroughly frustrated at you now. I'll look to the others in the group being like, we're in agreement about this, correct?
What is your counter theory, Corporal? What is the gap that we are using mythology to fill in? What is that filled with for you?
I have to say, I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. I think mythology itself is a thing that fills gaps for people. It's a way that people glean understanding from the world. The fact that people believe this fully and are acting as though it is real is not incongruent with it potentially not being real. How many mythologies have come and gone over time that we no longer believe to be real, but at the time, people lived and breathed and devoted their lives to these things as though they were real. I don't think it not being literally real lessens the figurative and spiritual meaning of the thing. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a literal vampire out there, but if people believe in these things, that has a weight to it. If de Mendoza believes it is important to deconstruct this pyramid because it will unleash a great power, greed itself can be described as a power. Perhaps that's all that is being unleashed, who knows? But it doesn't mean that won't also be incredibly seen, or at least seen as incredibly dangerous to those who believe the power is real and should be contained. But even if none of it is literally real, though that stuff still has a very real meaning to the people that it involves.
Okay, so I get the impression we're in agreement, whether it is literal or whether it is figurative, or whether it is mythological or fact. Either way, it is important, nay imperative, that we do not take anything else from the pyramid. Are we all in agreement?
I mean, I'm not sure that I fully believe there's a literal danger in doing so. But there is
a danger nonetheless. You just said it is important.
Jackson says,
it's important.
I think that perhaps we can agree that with the smallest chance that it will have a negative effect, we should not take anything from the pyramid. I don't think that anybody in the group has to believe that it will have a literal negative impact, but I think even the possibility that it could, we can agree on that, perhaps.
Agreed. We should not take anything from that pyramid.
That was never my intention. I have my own fee for being here. I'm not here for a lust for gold. I'm not sure it's necessarily our place to tell Larkin. That's perhaps a problem we'll get to when we get to it.
I do believe I am largely in agreement with Corporal Shane, although I am less skeptical about Mrs. Farwell's perspective. I think the Corporal does make a lot of sense. And I think he is right that the question of how we manage Mr. Larkin in whatever intention we may have is a very big question, and one that we perhaps cannot answer at this point.
Yes, we
I think
are
it's
still.
easier.
We're still
How-
missing. We're still missing a lot of information. I think things will become more evident as we continue. But I think if there's a chance that replacing this object will stem the flow of Karasiri, perhaps, I don't know. If there is a chance that that's a possibility, having seen what they've done both to name of researcher and Professor Sanchez,
Trinidad,
Trinidad, yes. Then I've seen that. We were there with the body. That was real. At least I think so. So if we can do something to help, then I'm in favor of that.
If nothing else, it will antagonize a group of people who have done some very bad things. And if it delays whatever end goal they are trying for, whether or not that is true, then perhaps that is a just course of action.
I mean, it's clear we're in a slightly unique position, and there's an opportunity here for us to influence something that holds a lot of meaning. And I that's not something I take lightly. And I'm very sympathetic to Professor Sanchez's perspective as well, that these things should be kept untouched. And perhaps that's as simple as it is the danger of disturbing things that are best left untouched. I don't know. But in any case, without de Mendoza, we might find that Mr. Larkin is a little more amenable to that sort of position without all this talk of vampires and scary beasties. But there may just be a basic respect for what we can discover and the joy of discovery without the joy of the plunder. Who knows?
I think Mrs. Farwell is looking thoroughly frustrated at sudden skepticism in the face of what she thinks is irrefutable evidence. But just out of curiosity, presumably at least some of this has been translated to Nayra. I'm curious to gauge her perspective on us talking about what we might do about the pyramid when we get there. Does she seem to be trying to add anything or just observing us?
She's just sort of listening. Yeah, but you, like, from the sort of conversations that you've had up till this point, you imagine that she may interject via either Merritt or Jackson if there was anything that she was, concerned about or anything.
Cool.
And as she kind of like feels like your conversation has sort of drawn to a close, she asks if anybody needs any medical assistance. I don't think anybody has any damage, and everybody's out of their illness now, aren't you? Sickness. So
okay, yeah. Before we go, I will attempt to do a little card trick for her because I thought she might enjoy that. So I will attempt to maybe sleight of hand.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I can't decide if I want this to succeed or fail.
I rolled a 95. Every roll this evening has been in the 90s.
It ends up in a 52 card pickup.
Oh
Or
gosh.
it's a tarot deck.
I do
isn't
have
it?
60 in sleight of hand, but
She okay, what do you do?
I'm doing like just a typical like put a card in the deck. Show her, because you might not be that familiar with cards. I'll show her.
If you
the
have a
deck of
60, then
cards.
it's not a fumble.
Yeah.
It's not a fumble. And then
But how do you think you play off when it goes wrong?
I take the wrong card out when it should be her card. And then I will just look confused at it for a moment and then play off like, and that wasn't supposed to be, and then try again and hopefully get the right one the next time, sort of thing.
Okay. She's sort of, quite like, almost like if a 6-year-old comes to show you a card trick and gets it wrong. It's that sort of...
which probably in a way makes it more entertaining. And I feel like at least we laugh about it for a moment afterwards.
Yeah.
And then I'll be just like blushing and annoyed the whole way on the boat back.
So can I offer her some payment, because I took some stuff from her. I took that coca leaf, so she's offering us medication, but can I basically say we actually sort of did take something, and can I offer her something?
She will say that if you want to give something back, then preferably a supply, like an equivalent supply rather than money. So if you could provide something from your first aid kit, medicine kit, then she would happily take that in sort of replacement.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have a look through it with her, I guess, and see if there's something there that might be helpful. I mean, there's probably a bunch of stuff that's not that helpful unless you've got our syringe is going to be of any good if you've not got a thing to that kind of stuff. But I'm sure there'll be something that you can pull out that we can trade. Yeah,
cool. And yeah, she's quite happy with that, but didn't begrudge you taking them in the first place. And she kind of says to Jackson, and then he says to you, she wasn't that great on the water until recently, so she knows how bad perpetual sickness can be. Cool. So is there anything else that you want to speak to Nayra about, or are you going to head back to town? Cool.
Less so for me, but didn't Jackson sort of imply that she was also some sort of wise woman, and that Winifred might kind of have an interest in her because they were maybe sort of spiritually sort of similar? I don't know whether that's just really about the kind of Carasiri stories, if there's anything else that you guys had, but...
Yeah, I think they can have had a little bit of a conversation about a couple of things, via Merritt or via Jackson. Yeah, and
did it kind of imply that she was also some sort of psychic or medium or of that kind of nature? Like, does she claim to have some sort of supernatural abilities herself?
Not exactly, just more that she's sort of, a spiritual and like a healer and that kind of thing. Yeah. Cool. If you go on, John.
I'm taking a guess here, but I will try and stumble through like a thank you and a formal farewell in Ketchen. I'm making an assumption she's a wise woman that maybe she speaks Ketchen.
Do you have the skill, right? Do you want to make a roll?
Yes, I will roll against my 5%.
But if you succeed, it might go up.
That's why I'm trying.
Fumble, just insult her mother.
No, it's a 20.
Okay. She gets the gist of what, and in fact, she quite politely corrects you. So you weren't far off, and yeah, you kind of leave thinking, oh, actually, maybe I do know a bit better. If I were to repeat that, it's the pronunciations rather than the words, like slight,
That sounds like a free tick I've ever heard one.
Not a free tick. But But cool. If you are heading back to town, then we will leave it there for this evening. Thank you, everyone. Cool. Yeah. So any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We will be back next week for more of this. This Wednesday, Simbaroom is back. Thursday, Yellow King. Simbaroom back to every week, and Yellow King every other week. So this week and then the 24th, and so on. And there are links below the stream to our other channels, our social media, our Discord, and our Patreon, where you can support us if you enjoy what we do on the channel. And next week, we might even be at full capacity, I think, if people aren't ill or those things. We'll see. We'll see.
I think we might be down on Justin again, but I'm not sure.
I think it was just last week and this week, and then he came for a bunch of last week. But I don't know. Anyway, we'll have some people.
Nicely specific.
That's a cliffhanger if ever I've had one.
Yes. Cool. Anything good in the comments, John? 42, average man doesn't have a lot of luck. Sounds about right. Yeah, that was in reference to Edwin, I think.
Yes, Edwin will not be spending luck on very much at all, unless it's really important.
Interesting. Life would be quite different, wouldn't it, if we could spend luck on things? Strange. Although if it was finite, that would also be somewhat scary.
Yeah, it'd get a bit messy, I think.
Yeah, no.
Inga, as casual as a paranoid lawyer in Puno. Yep.
It's not quite being followed, and there's more, and there's still no weaknesses, and this gold bar is either going to make things better or potentially a lot worse.
But now we have further evidence that maybe hitting them with it might help. Don't know if it's the gold, don't know if it's the symbols.
But it's all right. We'll be fine. We're totally prepared. We're totally prepared. It's not like half the group doesn't really think that they're real at all. So we're perfectly safe.
I don't think it'll take long. Maybe a couple of rounds. If something
don't believe vampires are real is not the same thing as if someone clearly dangerous, whatever they are, comes and attacks me, I'll just sit there and take it.
It's the whole.
I don't believe. If I don't believe in you, you'll just disappear.
It's the whole they'll desiccate your body or give you a weird kiss of vampirism, and they're apparently invincible to everything except this specific gold bar thing that's kind of important.
Well, haven't seen all of that with our own eyes. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. That's what
the
best approach to vampires.
For what it's worth, that snap that Winifred had was beautiful. I felt that. I was like, oh god.
Oh, she was mad.
Yeah, that was great.
You can fit 3 whole Cthulhus in there, presumably about the reed boats, right?
That was about the lake.
The lake.
Oh, about the lake.
So big.
Yeah.
You probably could fit. I mean, it's not very deep though, is it? I'm not sure.
Check Wikipedia.
I don't know.
It might be the depth of the whole mountain.
Yeah.
Maybe if they just lie down.
It's just
kind of like sardines.
Just below the surface.
I mean, Cthulhu is quite sort of,
It's not very eldritch, is it, to have Cthulhu just there, 2 foot below the surface of the water?
It's perhaps like a big jellyfish. They on the beach they really do spread out. So
you don't come across a beached Cthulhu, do you? That's no good.
Just push
look what's washed up onto shore here.
In it.
It's 12,000 feet above sea level, Lake Titicaca, which means that it's higher than you can stand in the UK.
Yeah,
I mean, it's way higher than you stand in the UK. Heck, it's higher than most of the Alps. Damn,
it's pretty high up.
Yeah,
cool. Yep, that is everything, I think.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, players. Oh, go on.
We just had a follow from Cardman2467.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, presumably, at some point. Yes, cool. Right, we will be back next week, and maybe go on foot towards a pyramid. But yeah, please join us on Wednesday. Yeah, please join us on Wednesday for Simbaroom and Thursday for the Yellow King. But otherwise, we will catch you next Monday for more of this. Thanks, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Goodbye.